Welcome back to Navigating the Streams. I'm Mike DeLong, and I'm here to tell you about everything I watched in January. Last month, I watched 12 movies, including 7 more from 2025, a couple movies from the last several years, and 2 movies from the 1980s. As always, I'm giving you my reviews from least favorite to most favorite. Let me know what you think. First up, I've got The Souvenir, and I gave it 2 stars. While I was watching this movie, I looked up reviews and found one that said, riveting. And I was like, are we watching the same movie? Because the movie I was watching was making me angry and bored. This is not a movie experience I ever want to have again. Honor Swinton Byrne plays Julie, an upper middle class film student finding herself in her young adulthood, who begins a relationship with Anthony, played by Tom Burke. Anthony is a prick. He's rude, puts her down, and on top of all that, he's a heroin addict. Julie tries to navigate this relationship while failing to give her schoolwork the attention it needs. The Souvenir doesn't give the audience much. You have no idea why Julie stays in this relationship or how she even got in it in the first place, besides inferred naivete. The movie is so frustrating and difficult to watch. We had to break it up into 2 nights, and my wife couldn't believe that there was a whole hour left in the movie at the halfway point. The acting was okay, but the script was barely there. The set design and cinematography were the bright spots of the movie, with a mirrored wall and cramped shooting spaces. The movie is a memoir of the director's youth of sorts. And there's a sequel, but I do not care to watch it. So yeah, you can check this one out if you want, but I don't recommend it. If you do, be sure not to leave a comment. Next up is The Toxic Avenger, and I gave it 2.5 stars. The Toxic Avenger tries to capture the craziness of the B-movie, but it's not entirely successful. Peter Dinklage plays Winston, the janitor of a company that seems to specialize in toxic waste. Through some outrageous circumstances, he ends up shot in the head and dumped into the chemical soup, which disfigures him while also giving him superhuman strength and healing powers, which he chooses to use for the good of humanity. This is a fun movie with ridiculous gore, okay acting, and a combination of practical and special effects. This movie is not meant to be a masterpiece. It's an homage to classic low-budget movies. However, it missed the mark here. It looks a little too good, and the actors are too good to really bring that B-movie feel. You have Peter Dinklage, Kevin Bacon, Elijah Wood, and Jacob Tremblay in this movie. If you really wanted that feel, you keep Dinklage to have a name, then cast the rest with unknowns. I mean, looking at the cast of the 80s original, I don't know any of those names from a career before or after. Every time you see Bacon or Wood, you know that they're really good actors there, and it elevates the movie from where it's meant to be. I watched The Toxic Avenger to see what they would do with the material. It's fun, but ultimately unsuccessful at improving it or paying the original tribute. The Chipmunk Adventure comes next, and I gave it 2.5 stars. The Chipmunk Adventure is a nostalgia watch that I got from the library to show my kids. My wife was also really excited to revisit this one. It's fun, but ultimately, it doesn't stand the test of time. The Chipmunks and the Chipettes take off on an around-the-world balloon competition tricked by Claudia and Klaus, 2 jewel thieves of undetermined European descent. The kids are supposed to swap dolls filled with diamonds for dolls filled with cash, unbeknownst to them. So, this is obviously a movie spin-off of the 1980s TV show that wasn't supposed to be high art. I remember really liking it as a kid, but now, as an adult, I see a few big problems and some fun nitpicky ones. For instance, the kids get into balloons and struggle to fly them, obviously, but quickly get them under control and fly off into different directions, and that's just not how balloons work. Or some big issues like the clearly racist depiction of, I guess, Egyptians who want to add the Chipettes to a harem, or a tribe from some unknown location who want to sacrifice the chipmunks to some crocodiles. That being said, the animation is clearly dated, the story is ridiculous, and there's nothing special about the voice acting. My daughter thought it was just okay, but laughed quite a bit while watching it. She did want me to let you know that the shark was not accurately animated though, and my son liked it well enough. This isn't a movie that I'm going to revisit anytime in the future, but it was fun to revisit it nearly 40 years later. I've got The Sure Thing next, and I gave it 3 stars. The Sure Thing is the only Rob Reiner movie that I hadn't seen from his great run from 1984 to 1992, and it's probably the runt of the group. John Cusack plays Gib, an 18-year-old boy tired of dating high school girls and ready for college women. But when he gets to his stuffy Northeastern college, he's stuck in a dry spell, especially after striking out with Allison, played by Daphne Zuniga, a student that fits well in the stuffy Northeastern college. His friend gets him to come out to California with a sure thing to break the dry spell, but his cross-country journey is complicated by his travels with Allison, who's going to see her serious boyfriend. This movie is fine. It's a more serious take on the 80s teenage sex comedy, which elevates it a little. The story is well trodden. Boy thinks he wants one thing, but comes to find he wants something else. The acting is fine, not great, and the situations the characters find themselves in isn't always believable, but not outrageously so. It's a fine movie, but entirely skippable. If you're trying to complete the filmographies of Rob Reiner or John Cusack, you can do worse than The Sure Thing, but you can definitely do better as well. Next up is The Outrun, and I gave it 3 stars. The Outrun is a movie that I probably won't ever watch again, but that's not to say it isn't worth catching up with. Saoirse Ronan plays Rona, an alcoholic who returns to her quiet home after escaping to the big city for school and losing control. She lives with her religious mother while helping her father, they're divorced, with his farm. But neither of these are great places with her, for the guilt and shame she perceives from her mom's church group and the alcoholism and mental health issues of her father. She has to isolate herself even further to manage her demons and find herself again. There are a lot of things to like, such as Ronan's performance. She really makes you feel for her, and you ride along with her failures and successes, and the beautiful scenery of the isolated Orkney Islands of northern Scotland. However, there are just as many things that don't work, such as flashbacks that can lose the viewer for a moment or two, and the fact that sometimes the movie just isn't that interesting. This movie is pretty middle of the road, with a slight elevation from the Ronan performance. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't tell you to avoid it either. The Life of Chuck is next, and I gave it 3.25 stars. The Life of Chuck may have been a casualty of expectations. The movie premiered in the fall of 2024 at several festivals to a lot of awards buzz, but it only got a quiet theatrical release in the summer of 25. Then an even quieter streaming release on Hulu. Tom Hiddleston plays Chuck, but only for about 40 minutes of the movie. You see, the movie is told in 3 chapters. The first is a strange end-of-the-world scenario where many of the things that make our world run just stop working with no explanation until the very end. Chuck appears on some billboards and bus bench ads, but that's basically it. The second chapter shows Chuck on a business trip between conference sessions when he comes upon a busker drumming on the street and begins to dance with a woman who has lost her job or boyfriend. I don't remember. And the third chapter is about Chuck as a young boy living with his grandparents after the death of his parents and the effect that had on his life. This movie is about living life to the fullest, but it just didn't work for me. Maybe it was the way the story was told. I didn't read the Stephen King book, so I don't know how it's told there or how much was left out. The middle chapter seems like the wrong story to tell. It does fit in with the dancing from the third chapter, but there's not that much meat on the bone. There's no purpose. The first chapter is weird too, due to Chuck not really being in it at all, with no real explanation until the end of that chapter. That being said, there is a positive message, and the performances are good. If you're looking for a somewhat uplifting movie and don't mind a plot with little connective tissue, you may enjoy The Life of Chuck more than I did. Please like this video and subscribe for future reviews and to find out what's coming to a streaming service near you. I've got A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey next, and I gave it 3.25 stars. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey is an interesting piece of storytelling, but it doesn't really come together as much as you would like it to in the end. David, played by Colin Farrell, goes to a friend's wedding in a rental car with an unusual GPS. There he meets a beautiful woman named Sarah, played by Margot Robbie. The next day, they accidentally meet up and end up driving together. The GPS takes them on a journey to random doors in the middle of nowhere that lead to key moments in past relationships that shaped who they are today, and explaining why they'd be terrible together. While the concept of knowing somebody's baggage before you get into a relationship is interesting, I don't know that it ultimately works in the end. I'm not sure if I really care about these characters and whether they get together or not. The acting is fine, but both characters are detached and don't seem too interested in the other. The sets are good and the flashbacks work on an individual basis, but there's nothing to bring the two characters together. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey has a whimsical story, but was ultimately unsuccessful for me. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is next, and I gave it 3.5 stars. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is not a movie for everyone. It has the power to make you feel the character's anxiety, and that's just not a place everyone wants to go. Rose Byrne plays Linda, a mom, wife, and psychologist who's trying to hold everything together while her daughter suffers from a prolonged illness, her bedroom ceiling collapses, her husband is away, her clients are losing it, and you know what? So is she. Rose Byrne is amazing as a woman who can't keep it all together, coping with alcohol and pot while trying to be the best mom and therapist. However, it is also difficult and uncomfortable to watch her go through all these things. She makes choices that no parent should and admits to something that no parent wants to, whether it's true or not. There's also something strange going on with the hole in her ceiling. There are strange twinkling lights, and sometimes it seems to resemble the hole where a feeding tube would enter the body, much like her daughter's. If that's a ride you're interested in taking, by all means do it. It's worth the trip. But if that doesn't sound like something you'd enjoy, I'd definitely avoid this one. Next is One of Them Days, and I gave it 3.75 stars. One of Them Days is a movie where everything goes wrong for our main characters, but it all comes together in the end. Keke Palmer and SZA play roommates, Drew and Alyssa. Drew has a job interview in the afternoon and just wants to rest and prepare. But then she finds out that Alyssa's boyfriend spent their rent money, her neighbor can't finish her braids, and that's just the start of it. They need to somehow figure out how to make rent, get Drew to her interview, and get through the rest of the craziness that happens by the end of the day. This is just a fun comedy. There's nothing magnificent about it, but it succeeds in what it's trying to do. The characters are not always fleshed out, and the situations are ridiculous at times, but that's just the type of movie this is. I've been meaning to catch up with this movie for all of 2025, and I'm glad that I finally did. Mel Brooks, the 99-year-old man, is up next, and I gave it 4 stars. Mel Brooks is a comedic legend, full stop, and this documentary is a great showcase of his life and talent. It starts out with a detailed version of his life growing up and how he came to comedy. It also spends a lot of time going through his early career as a writer for The Sid Caesar Show and performing as the 2,000-year-old man. You learn about his fears, his drive for more success, and his first marriage. Then you get into his films and Mel's rise to stardom. It pretty much touches on every major film from The Producers to Robin Hood Men in Tights. He explains how he always tried to push the envelope. There are interviews with Mel Brooks and several other comedians, some of whom he worked with, others just inspired by him. It's just a really good time, learning new things about the man and reminiscing about the great movies he created. I kept thinking about sharing these movies with my kids, but I probably won't be allowed to share most of them for another couple of years, at least. If you remember laughing your ass off at Mel Brooks movies when you were growing up, then you'll definitely love this movie. I've got 28 Years Later up next, and I gave it 4.25 stars. I finally made time to see 28 Years Later, and it was more than I expected it could be. It's been 28 years since the rage virus outbreak. Britain is now quarantined, and no one is allowed to leave. There are pockets of people surviving in the quarantine zone, and the one we follow is on a small island that, when it is low tide, has a rocky bridge to the mainland. A young boy, Jimmy, is taken to the mainland by his stepdad to get his first kill, against the wishes of his sick mother. He has several different experiences on this first trip, including seeing a fire from someone he later learns is a doctor. After getting back to their town, Jimmy decides to take his mother to see the doctor to try to find a cure for her illness, which is an adventure in and of itself. I really like this movie. It's so much more than a zombie movie and asks questions about survival, evolution, and humanity. I don't want to get too much into these issues because they're interesting to discover as the movie progresses. The acting is good, especially by Jodie Comer, who plays the sick mother. She goes from lucidity to confusion so well. She's probably my favorite actor I found the work of in the 2020s. There's quite a bit of shaky cam with the zombie chases, but it's fine. The makeup and zombie effects are great too. Since Night of the Living Dead, some zombie movies have been about more than just flesh-eating monsters. It's good to see another one that pushes that to new places. This movie made me disappointed that I'm not going to have time to watch its sequel, The Bone Temple, in theaters this year. But I'm definitely going to watch it as soon as I can. And I suggest you check them both out too. Finally, I've got Kneecap, which I gave 4.5 stars. I watched Kneecap knowing absolutely nothing about it except that it was nominated for a few BAFTAs last year. I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw. Kneecap is a somewhat fictionalized story about the formation of the Irish rap group of the same name. Two friends grow up to believe that speaking Irish was a way to revolt against the British in Northern Ireland. They become drug dealers, and when one gets arrested and refuses to speak English, an Irish interpreter is called. This interpreter sees some of their writings and convinces the boys to put them to beats, becoming a rap group who primarily speak Irish in their music. This movie is hilarious. The members of Kneecap play themselves. They're not the greatest actors, but it works here, and I like the supporting cast too. The story is well fictionalized in an exaggerated and funny way. I've already told you way too much about this movie. Just open up Netflix, turn on the subtitles, watch it, and enjoy the ride. That'll do it from this review video. There were a few surprises last month, both good and bad. Man, that Chipmunk Adventure just really didn't hold up. What movie from your childhood doesn't age well? Let me know in the comments. If reviews aren't your thing, come back in a couple of weeks to find out what's coming to streaming services in March. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.